All right, I'm back. Let's have a drink. Cheers. Welcome back, everybody, to me doing the weekly navel-gazing, or in this case, probably a bi-weekly navel-gazing, because it's been a while since we talked, because I was away. Although I did, in fact, I think, mention that last time. Who knows? You know, it's a mess, but it's weekly navel-gazing. I talk about all the books I read, all the videos I did, all the stuff I plan to do next, and then it usually descends into wild rambling because this is still my channel. So, that's what happened, and let's get started and talk about books I recently read, and I hope I'll get it all figured out because, you know, memory and stuff. Alright, so, I did not, in fact, read that much over the last week because I've, you know, as I said, I've been traveling and that doesn't always line up well with lots of reading. You'd think that, you know, sitting in, like, Flixbus for, like, 12 hours gives you a lot of reading time, but it's in the middle of the night. You have to watch the fascist police take out people because their visa might be in order, but we don't want to have people with only their visa and not a full documentation coming into our country because we are obviously still in Schengen. We're not, I guess. I mean, anyway, I'm getting distracted by politics already. I did read some books, however, and I did read and finish Polostan, which is the first part of the Bomb Light trilogy by Neil Stephenson. It's a historical novel. It is okay. This is my short thoughts on it. I enjoyed it because I enjoy Neil Stephenson novels. In that regard, it works really well. If you're into historical novels about, like, the 1930s, sure, give it a ride, but be aware that it's a short Neil Stephenson novel, so it leaves out a lot of the context. We'll be talking about it in a video sooner or later. I did obviously read some more Ian MacDonald. I did finish, I guess I already talked about finishing Scissors Cut Paper Wrap Stone and finishing, of course, Sacrifice of Fools. Both I obviously really enjoyed, and I am currently about to finish Chaga, which is sometimes also called Evolution Shore in the US, and is the first part of the Chaga series, the other one being, of course, Kirinya, and there is a novella, I guess, short story, whatever, that's called Tendalio's Story. Those will be the next parts of the Ian MacDonald project, so I'll read those very soon. Beyond that, I am kind of at a loss what I also read and then didn't talk about, so we'll just assume that's everything I recently read. Because I already spoke about, you know, the sapling cage and the video's already up, so that stuff's already done. So, what else did happen? I mean, obviously, what do I plan to read? Well, I already said I plan to read next the Chaga books, and probably then also sprinkle in some other stuff. I looked at October releases, and I don't think there's much interesting stuff coming out for me, or stuff that is out there that, you know, has audiobook releases scheduled for this month. I think at the end of the month, the last John Gwynne one, the last, what's it called? The Fury of the Gods, whatever. The last Something of the Gods book in the Bloodsworn saga will come out, and I'll definitely read that one, just to, you know, finish stuff. Beyond that, who knows? I did acquire the audiobook for The Way of Idan by Philip Chase, and I will probably read it sooner rather than later. I'm obviously always a bit wary when it comes to sort of like trilogies. I prefer to, you know, have them all in one go, but I assume that we'll have to wait a long, long time for the audiobook for the other two Idan books, so, well, I might as well read it now, and we'll see where that goes. And then there's, of course, Sanderson, and I'll probably get started on the Sanderson stuff really soon. So that's reading plans. If you have something that I really should read very soon, or that comes out this month that I'm just not aware because I'm unaware of a lot of things, let me know in the comments. I would appreciate that. So let's talk about videos. So as I said, in the last 2 weeks, I did, of course, put out some videos, one of them being on The Sapling Cage by Margaret Killjoy, one of them being on Sacrifice of Fools by what's-his-face, Ian MacDonald's, and I did one, or there's more videos out there, I'm pretty sure, but I keep forgetting which ones. Oh yeah, I did the video where I talked about disability stuff. I think it worked well. I hope it helped some people. It's, you know, it's always a bit of a balance with those kind of videos to how to phrase things, because clearly these are very, on the one hand, very personal experiences, but on the other hand, I always try to sort of make a larger point sort of about systems and shit, so it took a while for me to kind of reach a point where I felt comfortable doing that video, so it's out now, and I hope you've watched it. Beyond that, that's all, because, as I said, I did in fact record the Sacrifice of Fools video before I left, pre-recorded it, and it took a while for me to, get around to publishing it. I wanted to do a video on Polo Stan as well, but since I came back from a festival on last Sunday in the afternoon, and had to leave for a conference in the night, there was a very limited amount of time I had for recording stuff, also packing and repacking and unpacking, and, all of those things, so it didn't happen yet. It will happen, though. Which brings me, of course, to what will happen now that I'm sort of back for now, and videos for this week. Well, of course, the staple will be definitely Polo Stan. I have some thoughts about it. Actually, I have a lot of thoughts about it that I think may actually be sort of, helpful for like a larger context and so forth. So that video will happen very, very soon. I even already have the thumbnail for it, so there's nothing in the process that could possibly go wrong beyond me losing my voice even further than I have currently lost it. Then there will, of course, be a video on Chaga, or Evolution Ashore, and then that one will hopefully also be out this week, because I'll definitely finish the book either today or tomorrow. So there's that. Beyond that, I don't fully know, because once again, I will read Kirinya next, and I will definitely make a video about it. Could be this week, could be next week, depending on, how time flows and stuff. There are definitely other videos that will happen in the future on more Ian McDonald, but also like larger projects and shit. But for this week, I don't want to promise too much. I think I can promise Polo Stan and Chaga. Beyond that, I don't know. Will I make a video on Way of Idan? I also don't know, because with videos about, books by fellow booktubers, friends, whatever you want to call them, colleagues, it's a bit more difficult to go down those things, especially before I have actually read the book. Now, if I've read the book and I enjoyed it, then sure, I can talk about it. But what do I do if I dislike the book? How do I phrase that in a way that will not make everyone mad? In particular, not make Philip mad, whom I really like as a person. So what do I do around that? It's a question I need to sort of consider. But for now, I don't know. There is, of course, also the point that I really need to get my shit together when it comes to the Brandon Sanderson project. So ideally, I'll start work on the Mormonism video, because I wanted to start with that. And this is sort of where we slowly descend into the rambling part of the whole thing, as usual. And yes, I obviously did a lot of research on the Mormonism video early this year, like January or February, and then I didn't do it for the reason that my camera broke at the time, and the whole thing. And by the time I had a new camera, my brain had wandered off to a different place, which is usually what happens. But since I promised to read those Cosmere things this year, I will have to do that soon. And since we're reaching the end of the year, slowly but surely, and Wind and Truth comes out on the 6th of December, so I should be ideally more or less done with the Cosmere shit by then, so I can read that one right when it comes out, and then have hopefully my fully wrapped up big Sanderson thing after that, before the year ends, because that would be really helpful. Partly because, Sanderson stuff probably will do good around the release, partly because it gives me a sense of completion in a lot of ways, and we will have to figure out how all of these things will work. So that one, I will have to do some refreshing of memories, maybe go and reread the American Zion book, by Benjamin Park, which I think was a really helpful resource when it comes to the history of different parts of Mormonism, but mainly the LDS Church, which is, something I want to focus on. And the idea here is, in a lot of ways, I think it's important. There's a lot of fantasy authors out here that come from a Mormon background. Some of them have, left the church. Some of them are very vocally connected to the LDS Church. Some of them are somewhere in the broader spectrum of that. And I think it's important to look at that in a way that goes beyond what we currently have when it comes to content on Mormonism on the internet. Because on the one hand, you have obviously a lot of, you have your Tradwife stuff, you have all of that very happy pro-Mormonism sort of material out there, connected to, missionaries and all of that stuff. And that's one part of it. And then you have a lot of, ex-Mormon content. And that is about people talking about why they left the church, talking about their experiences within the actual existing sort of like society, because obviously the LDS Church as an organization is one thing, Mormon society around, or larger Mormon society around, say, Utah and those places is another thing, Mormon society abroad is even another thing, and that content is often very much, focused on that. It's often very negative, and I will not, go into that because it's not my experience. I can't talk about how bad it is to be a Mormon. I wouldn't know. And I believe the people that make those kind of videos and talk about that in a negative context. I believe them when they say that they had terrible, experiences. Now, the point that I wanted to make is that if we see what is going on, like if we have like a quick introduction, like what do Mormons actually believe, what is Mormon history of the Mormon Church, how do those things interact, what kind of societal background do all of these authors come from that write fantasy novels or science fiction novels or Twilight or stuff like that. If we look at all of that, is there something we can sort of like learn from having a basic understanding of Mormon belief, church history and so forth that influences their writing and the themes they pick in their books and where that is going? And for that, I feel like having a quick primer, short introduction to like both history and faith and current structure and all of that stuff could help. And that's sort of like the goal that I have. That is more like an educational sort of like primer, because once I start reading those Brandon Sanderson novels or rereading them, I want to be able to point out these elements, and if you don't understand what I mean, then you can always go back and watch that other video. And having a background resource, in the same way that I did the Snow Crash video when I wanted to talk about Scissors, Cut, Paper, Rub, Stone, because I felt it helps if I can sort of point to something that I may go like, here, this is what I mean when I talk about this, and that's sort of the goal there. So I have to do that one first. I just have to figure out how deeply involved I want to get and how short I want to have this, how long I want to have this, because at the end of the day, I am not a Mormon influencer, and I'm also not a anti-Mormon influencer. I'm not even doing much about religion at the moment. So how deep should I go with this? How academically deep should I go with this? I obviously read a bunch of books, but we will see. So that's definitely going to happen relatively soon, I hope. Beyond that, who knows? Because I need to slow down now. This was like the last weeks were sort of like the end of the summer festival season. First, I helped friends organize a festival, and like cleanup of that area took until like last week, two weeks ago, like Tuesday. I think, Tuesday was like the last day I still helped carrying stuff around and remove trash from the festival area and so forth, because if you run if you organize an outdoor concert or festival, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of work that goes into that like the average, visitor, the audience don't necessarily notice. A lot of work in there. So after that, on Wednesday I did nothing, and then on Thursday I went to Keep It True Rising because I wanted to see one final Cirith Ungol show and some other cool metal bands, and I had a lot of fun there. And then I went straight back to a conference for history students, which I also had a lot of fun with. Don't get me wrong, it's brilliant. But after all these days, there is a certain level, and then I went to a friend's wedding. Two of my best friends got married on Saturday, and I came back like yesterday, very late. Not very late, but like very early in the morning, and after not having slept for a long time. So the point is, there's a drain on my batteries, on my social and mental and so forth batteries, hanging out with people. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy hanging out with people. It's really, generally, I enjoy this. The problem is, however, that partly, there's such a thing as there's such a thing as too much of it in a way. On the other hand, this is probably partly for, being somewhat neurodivergent with ADHD, but also having the added like disability thing and all kinds of other like social and mental hang-ups and shit. It is stressful just hanging out with people. There's like all these constant filters. Like, are they just doing this because they want to be nice, because they pity me for being like a disabled person, a person with a disability? All of these like constant questions in the back of my head that make it very sort of like stressful to do this, even though I enjoy it. And after a summer of like lots of concerts, lots of heavy metal festivals, all of this stuff, lots of traveling in that regard, which was great after like spending the last 2-3 years being incredibly depressed, stuck at home and not doing anything, slowly coming out of that hole and doing all of these things, I think was really helpful for my general sort of like sense of who I am and who I want to be and so forth in a lot of ways. But it has also been very, very draining, and obviously led over the summer to some weeks of like very little time to do anything but either, travel somewhere back, or be somewhere with people, and then come back here frantically recording like 3 videos in like one day, so I have some content later on, and maybe it's time to slow down a bit and focus clearly on like what will happen for the rest of the year with this channel, with my life in general, who I want to be, what I want to do, all of those things, and just frankly clean up the mess of like the last at least 2 or 3 weeks. I have like way too many unread emails. I certainly have some sort of like issues I need to iron out with my bank, and all of these other stuff that needs to be fixed, and then maybe sort of make a plan of like what can I actually actively finish this year. Where are there like places I want to take this channel, like course corrections, whatever. All of those kind of things need to be answered, and hopefully just like maybe also just like not doing anything for a couple of days and just like staring at the wall and ignoring social stuff may just like be needed to avoid me falling into like another black hole, because that's clearly something of a recurring pattern with me, with the depression stuff and the ADHD and all the other stuff. Like I tend to overcommit because I obviously want to be seen as a competent person, seen as someone you can trust to do stuff, and so I obviously always overcommit, and for a while it works well and I get like everything done, and then at some point I just like have like a full-on collapse and lock myself in a room and don't talk to anyone, which is bad if you have made a lot of commitments and then can't fulfill them. So I'm trying to avoid this time, because being aware of like a toxic behavior pattern is one thing. Changing it is quite another, but I feel like right now I need to sort of get this sorted out, and I'll try this week, which is why I only promised like 2 videos. And like these I can make because I already know what to say about Polo Stan, and I'm pretty much aware of what I want to say about Chaga so far, and that seems reasonable. So this will be sort of like where the stuff is going in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully until the end of the year, which obviously raises a question of whether I will do another Drizzt. I said no. I will have to look like how many. I think I only own the first 13 Drizzt books, which I think is already way too many, which is the ones that we talked about last year. So the question is, should I do another one of these? I don't know. Because I also feel at the same time, like I've probably said everything that needs to be said about Drizzt, those specific Drizzt novels, because, right? You already know what my opinions are, and I doubt that there's much more to be said about these books content-wise when it comes to their attitudes toward women, their attitudes toward different species, different races, different ethnicities, all the toxic shit that is in there. I feel I've mostly covered in the first 13. So at that point we would reach the sort of like rantertainment, I guess, is what I would call it, where I obviously point out the same thing and get mad about like how it's damaging my brain in my soul in all kinds of ways, and ideally overact my exasperation so viewers get enjoyment out of that. And I know that there are certainly people out there who do get enjoyment out of that. There's certainly a bunch of channels getting large numbers of views by very obviously and sometimes mean-spiritedly trashing books that are clearly not very good, or have been branded as like absolute fucking trash out there already, and doing that kind of content is something I don't want to do. It's the same reason why I have not read and not made a video about New Spring by Robert Jordan, because I've said my piece on Wheel of Time. I don't think there's anything in New Spring that would actually change my views in any way or form. So at that point, it would just be being mean about a book for the entertainment of others, and that's not exactly where I see my content. I know some people feel that I'm only negative about books, and yes, rants always get more views and so forth. But I try to not do that, because I want to make like larger points of like, because I think this stuff matters, and at some point it just doesn't matter. It's, the same way I won't talk about sort of truth books, because like, no, it's like maybe one book is worth talking about, but like after one book you've got it figured out, and it's not exactly going to add more value here, and we're all about exactly that. Obviously, no. I don't know what to say about this. So this is sort of like where I am right now. I came back from a 16-hour trip straight to a wedding, to partying until like 6 in the morning yesterday, and I'm slowly coming down from this, and I guess we'll see what happens in the next couple of days and weeks. If you have like ideas, if you have thoughts on, that kind of stuff, even if you're a suggestion for like what to do about the Drismas thing, do a different thing. I don't know if there's any other book series that really deserves me being mad at it for like 13 consecutive days. We will see. Let me all know about that stuff. Tell me what happened while I was away. Tell me what you did. Tell me what books you were reading. Tell me something nice down there in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, comment, join the Patreon. Maybe I'll actually figure out how to get the Patreon thing fully worked out. YouTube is trying to really heavily tell me to use channel memberships as well. I am currently taking part in a training program they have for that. I still don't know what I'll do with it, if I'll do it or not, because I still need to figure out what kind of like added value they would bring, because I don't know. We'll figure it out. Let's just have a talk in the comments, and we'll see where things are going. And I'll see you very soon with like actual content about, say, Polo Stan. Possibly tomorrow, possibly Wednesday, we'll see. And until then, just have a good week, and I'll see you. Thanks, and well, cheers.